on today's episode of the Clip Service podcast. Guys, it's been, a couple weeks since we talked, so naturally we need to break the big news. For those of you guys that don't know, the Clippers have the 5th pick in the draft this year, the highest pick that the Clippers have had since they drafted Blake Griffin back in 2009, so almost 2 decades ago. Big deal. We're going to kind of get into that, what that means for the Clippers, where we kind of want the Clippers to focus on with their pick, if we want to trade up, if we want to trade down, all that. So a lot of draft talk, and going to break down the Clippers' future a little bit. So without further ado, let's make it happen.
What's up, Clipper Nation? And welcome to the Clip Service podcast. You can make sure to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Amazon Music, and YouTube. And you can also find us on Instagram and Twitter at Clip Service Pod. I'm Rolla. This is my co-host, Nick. Let's get right into it.
Let's get right into it, guys. Clipper Nation, how are we feeling? Tremendous news in the Clippers sphere. A fantastic Mother's Day surprise. The Clippers get the 5th pick in the draft. They only had basically 2 options to have the pick convey. It was either going to be the 5th or the 6th pick. Anything else, it would have conveyed to, or it would have stayed with the Pacers, and it would have conveyed to the Clippers in 2031 as an unprotected pick. But this draft class, being as stacked as it is, being as highly touted, these prospects are as highly touted as we've seen in a long time. This is a huge deal for the Clippers, moving into the next era of Clipper basketball and kind of ushering in, hopefully, like a clean slate, a new future. Rolla, I want to get your reaction of your initial reaction when you found out the news that the Clippers were getting that 5th pick in the draft.
Yeah, man. I think I was taking a nap at that point in time, and then because I completely forgot that the lottery was that Sunday. Then I checked Twitter, and I woke up, checked Twitter. They said the Clippers got the 5th pick, and I went back to sleep. I absolutely was not surprised.
Wow,
I was shocked.
You didn't even celebrate.
I knew this was coming. No, why would I celebrate when I know what's coming?
When it was
does the mailman celebrate when he does the mailman celebrate when he delivers the mail?
That's a great point. I've never seen that.
It was just regular, bro. It was regular because last year we were
Rolla's at a loss for words right now.
No, we were thrust into a realization that the NBA lottery and draft picking is completely rigged when the Mavs got the number 1 pick. So this year, I completely knew. I knew that the draft is rigged. Why go in thinking that anything else other than what is going to benefit the NBA bottom line is going to happen, right? The Los Angeles is the second biggest market in the NBA. We are even though we're the second team in LA, we still have a pretty large following, larger than a lot of these other fan bases, and it benefits the NBA to give the Los Angeles Clippers that 5th pick, which is what they did. It was completely against the odds, and it is what it is. It sucks because, the GM didn't factor in the rigging of the NBA when he made that trade. And so he was just thinking, like, there's no way that the odds fall in their favor, but he doesn't realize there's a puppeteer, bro. So yeah, I mean,
man,
I wasn't shocked. I wasn't surprised.
Okay.
I've been saying it for months, bro. I
don't know how to feel about that,
bro. That's what happened with me. How about you? What happened with you? How are you feeling about it?
Well, first of all, that makes me feel kind of icky. Obviously I'm happy that the Clippers got the pick, but I'd like to believe that. I would like to believe that because if you look at that, you're talking about the odds. I think the Clippers had a 49% chance of it conveying. So it wasn't like it was like super stacked against them, but it had to be a very specific situation. I think the thing that that makes it more believable that maybe it wasn't rigged, and I guess I'm playing devil's advocate here, but you know, you look at like the teams. So breaking down like the picks, it was the Wizards get first, Utah gets second, Memphis gets third, Chicago gets fourth, and the Clippers got fifth. So you look at those four teams, like they were as bad, if not worse, than the Pacers, and like I would say that the Jazz were pretty open about their tanking and like Adam Silver. If we want to go and say that like Adam Silver was trying to reward teams that weren't taking, then I don't think that the Jazz would have gotten the second pick. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting theory, Rolla. I'd like to believe that maybe just this one time the basketball gods smiled upon the Clippers and paid them back for the misfortune that the Clippers have been having year after year after year. So that's the way that I'm choosing to look at it. But to answer your question, Rolla, I was at brunch with my family celebrating Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching the draft lottery on my phone, me and my dad and my brother. And when the news dropped, we were trying our best to not freak out at brunch. But yeah, I was really stoked. And I was, and not only did we get the pick, but we got the favorable of the two picks. Cause if you remember, the Clippers could only get the fifth or sixth pick in this draft. So, yeah, it was just a very positive experience overall. And I mean, given that I mentioned it before, but given how stacked this draft class is, I mean, this is the year to have a lottery pick. Especially if you're in the Clippers position where you're starving for young talent and starving for like a direction and a new franchise pillar and stuff like that. Like this is really, Clippers have an opportunity to really have something, make something special out of this, which is good, but it's also, I don't know how you feel about it, Rolla, but I'm a little nervous just because of the stuff that we've seen Lawrence Frank do in the past. He's had some great moves and he's had some great moments as a GM, but he's had some not so great moments as a GM, obviously. So I'm a little nervous just because, the Clippers were really gifted this pick, opportunity. They have an opportunity to do something really, great. And I hope that he doesn't go and try and pull something fancy. And I don't know. Are you nervous at all about the pick, Rolla? Are you nervous about the decision made by Lawrence Frank?
I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I think that we have shown that we are good at drafting. When you look at our last couple picks, we've made the most of it. Going all the way back to SGA, I think one of the biggest reasons why we have been so good was because we had Jerry West under the reins for a long time. Rest in peace. But I think that, I don't know. I trust our front office when it comes to recognizing talent. I mean, when you look at the young guys that we've drafted that are currently on our squad, they have like almost no misses. Like a lot of our young guys are ballers. A lot of the guys that we have drafted are ballers. You look at Terrence Mann. You look at like I said, SGA. I mean, it just I don't know. I just am not worried. And I don't know. The only thing I'm worried about is them trying to draft to complement Kawhi or trying to draft to maybe try to take Kawhi further. That can't be the case. I mean, we're currently in the NBA Western Conference Finals right now. Spurs versus OKC. Kawhi Leonard cannot compete with these guys. If this series should be a wake-up call to all NBA teams. None of your old heads can compete with these guys. Giannis, Steph Curry, LeBron. If those are your the pillars of your team, you will not win a championship. It's done. It's over. And it just is what it is. These young guys are here and they're hungry. I mean, look at Wembanyama. There is not a single player in the league, in the world, that can defend this guy. So, I guess to go back to your initial question, I'm not worried, and I think that we are looking to move forward with a good young core. How about you?
Yeah, no, I mean that definitely calms my nerves a bit. And I think that Lawrence Frank and the front office, they do a really good job in the later. They've done really well with like second round picks. Obviously, you look at Jordan Miller and Kobe Sanders. Kobe Brown was a miss, exactly. But Yannick, end of the first round. Terrence Mann, like they've done really well. They just haven't had a lottery pick since Shea, and obviously they knocked it out of the park with Shea. But Jerry West was still with the team, and whether or not he had a big impact, rest in peace. Whether or not he had a big impact on that decision, I guess we'll never know. But I'm really hoping the Clippers do right by this decision. And there's a lot of things to consider, which is the thing that I wanted to talk about next. Was you look at the future of the Clippers is obviously very up in the air. The biggest question mark is Kawhi Leonard's future with the Clippers. We've heard talks around the league that teams like the Heat and teams like the Warriors, were interested in acquiring Kawhi, even in last year at some point during last year. So, do the Clippers move on from him and start completely from scratch, and then you have to consider that. I mean, I would agree with you, but you would also have to consider the Clippers currently having Darius Garland on the roster. A guy that prior to this draft, we assumed was going to be the point guard of the future for the Clippers. But now you look at this draft and really almost every player, in the Clippers range in the lottery, the best players available are point guards or, ball dominant guards. And so you have to think about, are the Clippers going to draft a guy that kind of does the same thing as Darius Garland and then maybe move on from Garland? I guess the first thing that I wanted to talk about in that same, vein or tying it into that, is one of the guys that the Clippers, one of the prospects that the Clippers are projected to be interested in, or is to fall around that range, is Keaton Wagler out of Illinois, who is one of the bigger guards, in the lottery, 6'6", really good shooter, especially off the dribble, a little slight of frame, so he's gonna have to put on some muscle. Not a super plus athlete, but he's probably the guy that I would look at as a complementary piece to Darius Garland, because he's pretty comfortable playing off ball, as comfortable playing off ball as he is playing on ball. And then given that size too, you add a little bit more of a dynamic backcourt if he's going to start next to Darius Garland. Having a 6'6" guy playing next to a guy that's about 6 foot even, that can't really defend, that's a little bit better dynamicism, from that backcourt. You have guys like Darius Acuff, who's, a smaller guard, but definitely more of a lethal scorer. Has that swagger, is a little bit more of has that more of an it factor than Keaton Wagler. So, and then, you have other guys to consider too. Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson are obviously, if the Clippers get lucky enough to have one of them fall to fifth, those guys are obvious picks to make, but that's a big if. So there's a lot to consider. There's other guards available. Kingston Flemings, who's probably not my favorite asset or favorite prospect. He's really, really fast, but a little bit smaller guard that can't defend as well. One of the most interesting picks to me would be Ademara, who played 2 years at UCLA, just won a championship with Michigan. He's 7'3", can pass the ball. He has a decent shooting touch, although the volume and the accuracy isn't quite there yet. But he's a great defender, great rebounder. Obviously, he's huge. He's pretty mobile for his size, and his biggest skill set is his passing at that size. He's projected to go towards the end of the lottery. I think he would be a pretty big reach for the Clippers at 5. But I've heard talk that the Clippers would be interested in someone like that too. So a lot can happen. And another thing to consider too is I heard news that the Clippers worked out with AJ Abanza. Obviously, he's the consensus first pick in the draft. Like, the Wizards will probably take him just based on the fit with the team and stuff like that. But I've heard that both the Wizards and the Jazz are interested and possibly moving down or trading down to acquire assets. So I'm wondering if the Clippers might consider trading up and having Kawhi Leonard be a part of like a 3-team trade in that regard. I don't really know. There's so many things that could happen, but obviously we don't really know. I think the first domino to fall will be the the Kawhi trade if that does happen this offseason, and then moving on from some of our older guys like Lopez or Nico, or I would imagine that Nico probably retires. But a lot to be really excited about, this for this draft. So I guess we'll just keep our eyes open. Rolla, I wanted to ask you, on that same topic of Kawhi, and we've talked about teams like the Heat and teams like the Warriors being interested in Kawhi. Would you be interested in moving Kawhi to any of those teams for maybe one of their lottery picks? As it stands right now, the Heat currently have the 13th pick in the draft, and the Warriors have the 11th pick in the draft. So maybe having 2 lottery picks in this draft might be worth doing, especially if it would mean moving Kawhi and getting assets in return.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, actually. I think that, like you said, that this is a stacked draft. We need it as much as possible. I think even trading away Kawhi to get a draft pick, another draft pick, would be huge for us. I think that we really need to lock in on building that young core. But I don't really know too much about the draft in general. I think that there are some really good players. I got to do my research and look into those players that are within our range. But I do think that having an elite guard is what you want in today's NBA. You want a 3-and-D type of guard, or I don't want to say a 3-and-D, but a two-way player type of guard. One that can play defense, and then one that and then can also play offense. When you look at the MVP Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he's a long guard. The point guard of the team, the number one scoring option, but when he really needs to lock in on defense, he's capable of doing so. So I think that he's the blueprint. I think you want to pick up a player of that type. But I really don't have like too much to say on it. I mean, like I said, I just trust our front office to make the right decision. You mentioned working out with AJ Dybantsa. I have a hot take about him, but I'm not going to say it just yet.
Okay, but I'm excited to hear that.
But I think that there are a lot of guards that might surprise you. I mean, watching the March Madness this year, there were a lot of players that I really, really liked watching, especially in Arizona, Illinois. Caleb Wilson out of North Carolina, I think he's a very aggressive type of player. I think anything can happen, but I wouldn't mind trading assets to get another pick here.
Yeah. I guess my last question in terms of the draft would be something I mentioned before, but the Clippers, I think you and me both are pretty big fans of Darius Garland, and we liked what we saw from him during this, his short tenure so far with the Clippers. And I think we were both kind of convinced that he was going to be the point guard for the Clippers moving forward into the new era and stuff like that. But being a smaller guard and a guard that like lacks that defense, would you want, considering that most of the best players available for the Clippers are going to be point guards at 5th, if they keep that 5th pick, would you want to draft a guy that can start next to Darius Garland, or would you want to draft a guy that maybe is the best talent available, even if he does do the same thing that Darius Garland does, and then if we end up having to move on from Darius Garland, trading him at some point down the road?
I think you draft the best player available, period. And if he really is the best player available, especially in a top 5 stacked draft, I think that player can adjust to playing alongside Darius Garland. When I think about guards, and I guess what doesn't really worry me is when you look back at some of the elite guards playing today, you look at Donovan Mitchell, you look at someone like Devin Booker. Like, these are guards that were drafted, like 13, 14, like later on in the draft. So there are good players that come up later. I think it's what is kind of like high pressure about a pick this high is like, okay, do you just go with what everyone says to pick, or do you go with who you feel is a top 5 player? You know, like I said, I think it's just hard to it's just hard to know, dude. Like, I just say you go with the best player you feel at this point in time, and a player that you feel can maybe be a cornerstone in the future, and you go with it.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the priority, especially when the Clippers, have been starving for a pick for so long, like a significant pick, I think you got to do right and just draft the best player available and hope that the rest falls into place. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there. If he's not a good fit next to Darius Garland, or if we want to, have him start and have Benedict Mathurin be the eventual 2 guard and move on from Darius Garland, then we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yeah, I think a lot of interesting prospects, obviously, in this draft, and I'm really curious to see who the Clippers are going to end up taking. I just hope that the Clippers don't pull anything and try and move the draft pick for Giannis or something like that. Obviously, I don't even want to manifest that, but I'm really hoping that the Clippers just maintain this course and go with the best pick available. But yeah, I think that really. Sorry, Rolla, did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say I think like the Clippers have to know. They have to know that era of stardom, or maybe like that era of a big 3 or big 2 is done. You need to have a elite core of players, and your roster needs to be as deep as possible. I think that's what it is at this point. If you're trying to trade for Giannis, or if you're trying to trade for someone that you feel is a game changer or game wrecker, and trying to match him up with Kawhi, one injury and you're done. I mean, when you look at OKC, they can have injuries here and there, and they have players that will step up and fill the space immediately. So I just think that trading away this pick would be a devastating move. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, here's to that never happening, because I'm really, I'm very excited, and I know Clipper Nation, most of the people that I've talked to, are extremely excited about the opportunity to finally have this lottery pick, and not only lottery pick, but a top 5 pick. So I guess moving into piggybacking off of that, Rolla's point about the old guard, just not being enough in today's NBA. There's one rumor that I just wanted to address that I've heard today. I don't even know how legitimate it is, but I've heard talk that the Clippers are the possible favorites to land LeBron if he doesn't stay with the Lakers or go to Cleveland. Rolla, what is your opinion off the rip on that? Even if it was for a veteran minimum, let's just say. What is your opinion on something like that happening?
That would be such a horrible... That one might be worse than not trading Kawhi.
I agree.
That would be such a horrible move. One, because he's already established himself as a Laker. And I think that would... I don't know. I just feel like he wouldn't play for the Clippers the way he would play for the Lakers. Like, he wouldn't have that passion. He wouldn't want to win a championship. It would be like, okay, I'm just doing this for like as much money as possible, and retiring. That would be such a horrible move, because it would, not only because of that, but because it would take the ball away from Darius Garland. It would stunt his growth. It would stunt the rookie's growth. It would, like, LeBron would need to be on the court. He needs to have his 10-point plus streak. Well, I don't know if that ended already, but he needs to have his streak.
I think it ended. Yeah.
Oh. Then he needs to score. He needs to do this, that, and the third. He needs the ball in his hand, because he is the show wherever he goes. So that would be a devastating move for us. That would set us back, honestly, 3 years. And I'd be pretty fucking pissed.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. I think like in a perfect world, getting LeBron James for the veteran minimum to just like teach your young guys like how to play the right way or whatever, like it sounds great. And like obviously it wouldn't hamstring the Clippers much financially, especially if it was on a veteran minimum. But I'm of the belief, and I agree with everything you said, Rolla. I'm of the belief that the Clippers need to just, and I probably wouldn't have like leaned so hard into this take if the Clippers didn't get the pick this year. But now that we have the pick in our possession and we are poised to really just have this like new fresh era. And I'm not saying that we need to rebuild. We can still be competitive with the team that we have, you know, trim the fat around the edges and get younger. But I'm of the belief that the Clippers need to build their own legacy now. Like they were given a chance to really create this, like the nucleus of a new team. Like, I mean, you look at the Spurs and you look at OKC and you look at the Detroit Pistons, like all of these teams created this competitive team and it didn't happen overnight. I mean, we got to remember that the OKC Thunder, Shea's OKC Thunder was so bad for about 3 years. Like he wasn't good, you know, for about 3 years. He was good, but he wasn't the player he is now. Like it takes some time, but the pieces, I think you need time for these pieces to gel and, you know, these players to start building that chemistry and building for something like that they created. You know, I'm just, you know, I was hearing talk that the Clippers might move the 5th pick for Anthony Edwards. I love Anthony Edwards, but like Anthony Edwards has already built his own legacy. Like Anthony Edwards is already the player that he is. Like the Clippers need to try and start fresh and start from scratch. Don't cut any more corners. And I know that like Steve Ballmer's a businessman first and foremost, and he wants to put butts in seats. But I think at this point, I think most of Clipper Nation, I can safely say that most of Clipper Nation is starving for like the same legacy, the same journey that this OKC team had, and the Spurs team, and the Pistons team, and like you look at all these other teams. Like I think the Hornets are a couple pieces away from having their own legacy. Like, you know, the rest of the league is getting younger and building the stepping stones to get to where this OKC team got. And so I think the Clippers need to try and do that. And maybe they don't rebuild as hard as some of those other teams. Like you can still keep guys like Derek Jones. You can still keep guys like, for the right price, John Collins, and keep guys like Chris Dunn around. You know, like you don't have to completely scrap the team that you have, but I think, you know, be very selective with the moves that you make and do it in a way that is conducive to the future. That's where I'm at. So I think we can agree on that one, Rolla. And I know that I have a lot of pushback, Rolla, when you talk about, like, you know, for years, and I'll say this, for years, Rolla's been kind of ahead of the curve in terms of like tear everything down, you know, move on to the next era and stuff like that. And, you know, I agreed to a point, but I think I'm completely with you, Rolla. I think it's time. You know, it is time now that the Clippers, because the problem with that take I found, I'm just going to defend myself for a second. The problem with that take, you know, in the last couple of years is the Clippers didn't own their own draft capital. So by tanking and you know, being this shit team that's not going to win more than 15 games a season, you're just feeding the OKC machine picks and stuff like that. But now that the Clippers have, you know, have a first round pick and it
wasn't tanking, it was trading away James Harden, Kawhi, Paul George, and the players that choked every year. That was it wasn't like tanking, getting like draft, whatever. It was more of getting rid of these old players who choke every single year and trading them for assets to allow us to build basically what we're doing now.
Sure. Yeah.
So 3 years ago.
It just feels a lot more secure now that the Clippers not only, and that's another thing we have to remember, is the Clippers not only have the 5th pick in this year's draft, but they have a 2029 unprotected pick from the Pacers. Obviously, the Pacers will probably be competitive for years to come, which is another reason why I didn't think that the trade was as lopsided as a lot of fans are saying. Like, I think that the Pacers now have a very, very competitive team that can compete in the East, and that's what they were trying to go for. You know, adding Zoo, I think, was the piece that they needed. So I don't know if that 2029 unprotected pick's going to be any good, but it's still a pick. And, you know, the Clippers have 3 picks in this draft alone. They got the pick from the Terrence Mann trade, which is going to be the 36th pick in this draft, and then the pick from the James Harden trade, which is going to be the 52nd pick in this draft. So, you know, the Clippers finally now have that security, and I think, yeah, it's time for the new era. So Rolla, I can safely say that I am on board.
Hey,
It's been
about
years.
time.
It's been years,
Welcome,
but I am
brother.
fully 2 feet, 10 toes on the ship. And here we go. Hopefully, it's smooth sailing and bright horizons ahead. And I think it will be. But yeah, Rolla, did you want to touch on anything else before we get on out of here?
No, that's it for me, man. I'm excited to see who we pick.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. We'll probably have one more episode. Obviously, the draft I think is like the 23rd of June, so it's about a month from now. We'll probably have an episode or two for you guys before that, especially if something newsworthy comes out. If the Clippers move draft position or trade up or trade down or something like that, we'll come at you with that. But so stay tuned. But yeah, that does it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As Rolla said up top, you can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Deezer. Give us a follow on Twitter and on Instagram at ClipServicePod. Let us know what you guys think of the Clippers getting the 5th pick, where you guys would like to see them focus on the draft pick, who you guys want to draft. I know there's been a lot of takes on the prospects, so we'd love to hear all of that. Comment, like, subscribe, all of that. It ain't no lip service. This has been Clip Service. Rolla, tell the people, the happy Clipper fans, what they want to hear.
Let's go, Clips!
Let's go, Clips.